The wrong table. Marcus wiped his oil-stained hands one more time, though the faint smell of engine grease still clung to his fingernails. His reflection in the restaurant window showed a man who didn't belong here, worn jeans, a flannel shirt he'd ironed 3 times, and eyes that held equal parts hope and dread. Inside the upscale bistro, chandeliers cast golden light over tables draped in white linen, where people who'd never changed their own oil laughed over wine that cost more than his weekly grocery budget. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Kevin. Table 7, bro. She's wearing red. Don't mess this up. Marcus had agreed to this blind date only because his best friend had begged him, insisting it was time to move on from the loneliness that had settled into his bones like winter cold. At 32, Marcus had convinced himself that happiness was something other people deserved, not a mechanic who spent his days underneath cars in a neighborhood shop that barely stayed afloat. He pushed through the heavy door, immediately feeling the weight of curious glances. The hostess's smile was professional, but her eyes flickered over his appearance with practiced assessment. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone suggesting she already knew the answer should be no. "I'm meeting someone. Table 7. The words came out rougher than he intended. She glanced at her seating chart, confusion crossing her face. "Table 7 is reserved for the Henderson party." "Are you sure?" "That's what my friend said." Marcus felt heat creeping up his neck. This was already a disaster. "Let me check." She disappeared, leaving him standing in the entryway like furniture nobody wanted. He was about to leave when she returned, shaking her head. "I'm sorry, sir, but there must be some confusion. Perhaps you'd like to wait at the bar while we sort this out." Marcus turned to go, dignity hanging by a thread, when he caught sight of a woman sitting alone near the window. Table 17, not 7, his eyes had played tricks in his nervousness. She wasn't wearing red. She wore a navy dress that looked expensive but understated, and something about the way she sat, perfectly still except for her fingers drumming the tablecloth, made him pause. Then he saw the wheelchair tucked discreetly beside her chair, the way her body was positioned with careful deliberation, the emptiness of the seat across from her that had clearly been waiting for someone who hadn't shown. Their eyes met for just a second. In that moment, Marcus saw something he recognized, the particular loneliness of someone who'd been stood up, forgotten, deemed not worth the effort. He knew that feeling intimately. Without thinking, he walked toward her table instead of the door. "Excuse me," he said, his voice surprisingly steady. "I know this is going to sound crazy, but my blind date seems to have fallen through, and I noticed you're sitting alone. Would you mind if I joined you? I promise I'm not a serial killer. Just a guy who really doesn't want to eat dinner alone tonight." She studied him with intelligent gray eyes that seemed to catalog everything, his worn clothes, his nervous honesty, the grease still faintly visible under his nails. A small smile played at the corners of her mouth. "That depends. Are you always this forward, or is desperation bringing out your bold side?" "Definitely desperation," Marcus admitted, surprised to find himself smiling back. "I'm Marcus. Emma." She gestured to the empty chair. "Sit. But fair warning, my father owns half the buildings in this city, I haven't walked in 3 years, and my last date literally left in the middle of appetizers when he realized the wheelchair was permanent." Still interested, Marcus sat down. "My truck has 200,000 miles on it, I live above my shop, and I just spent 10 minutes psyching myself up to walk into a restaurant because I felt like a fraud." Still interested. Something shifted in her expression, surprise giving way to something softer, more genuine. "Well then, this might actually be an interesting evening." It was. They talked through appetizers that Marcus couldn't really afford but ordered anyway, through a main course where Emma told him about the car accident that had stolen her ability to walk but not her father's massive fortune or the parade of suitors who saw her only as a tragedy or a bank account. Marcus told her about building engines, about the meditation he found in solving mechanical puzzles, about the elderly customers he charged less because he knew their fixed incomes couldn't handle full price. "My father would call that bad business," Emma said, but her eyes were warm. "My accountant agrees with him," Marcus replied. "Good thing I can't afford an accountant." She laughed, a real laugh that made other diners turn to look. "You know what's funny? I was supposed to meet someone tonight too. Another setup. Someone appropriate, according to my father's standards. He didn't show, and honestly, I'm grateful." Over dessert, Marcus learned that Emma ran a nonprofit, that she'd been a dancer before the accident, that she was writing a book about resilience that had nothing to do with inspiration porn and everything to do with honest rage and slow acceptance. She learned about his sister who'd raised him after their parents died, about the neighborhood kids he taught basic car maintenance to keep them out of trouble, about dreams he'd packed away like old photos because dreaming felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. When the check came, Marcus reached for it instinctively. Emma raised an eyebrow. You realize this is probably more than you budgeted for tonight. Probably more than I budgeted for this month, Marcus agreed. But my mama raised me right, even if she didn't raise me long. Split it, Emma said firmly. Or I'm never agreeing to see you again. Again. The word came out before he could stop it, vulnerable and hopeful. You think I'd let someone this genuine slip away? Marcus, men who clean up for dates usually hide their rough edges. You walked in here wearing yours like armor, and you still sat down at a stranger's table because you recognized loneliness in her eyes. That's not something I find every day. The restaurant was closing when they finally left, Marcus carefully helping Emma with her wheelchair in a way that suggested competence rather than pity, the same hands that rebuilt engines moving with surprising gentleness. Outside, a sleek car waited at the curb, a driver already moving to assist. That's my ride, Emma said. The one perk of having an overprotective father. Can I call you? Marcus asked, feeling like a teenager but not caring. You'd better. She handed him a card with her number scrawled on the back. Although fair warning, my father is going to investigate you thoroughly. He's going to find out exactly how much you make, where you live, and probably your kindergarten attendance record. Should I be worried? Emma smiled, and it transformed her entire face. Only if you're planning to disappear. He scares off the ones who are in it for the wrong reasons. But the ones with genuine intentions. The ones who see me instead of my disability or my bank account. Those are the ones worth keeping around. Marcus watched her car disappear into the night, his wallet lighter but his chest somehow feeling fuller than it had in years. He'd walked into the wrong situation tonight, sat at the wrong table, met someone completely unexpected. And for the first time since he could remember, the future didn't feel like something to simply survive, it felt like something that might actually surprise him with moments of grace. His phone buzzed. Kevin's frantic messages. Where are you? Your date is furious you never showed. Marcus typed back. Sat at the wrong table. Met the right person. Tell you tomorrow. Walking back to his truck, Marcus realized that sometimes the best moments in life come from mistakes. From being lost enough to stumble into exactly where you're meant to be, from being brave enough to sit down with a stranger and admit you're lonely too. The poor mechanic had indeed sat at the wrong table. But Emma, paralyzed and powerful and perfect in her honesty, had been sitting at exactly the right one. And that made all the difference.